and just what are your plans for the off season and possibly playing or just doing individual workouts?
Yeah, I mean, probably take a little bit of a break here, just for maybe a week. I don't really want to lose kind of the stuff I've worked on, and just trying to get my body back to.
What happens when the athlete credited with transforming a league decides she's no longer willing to absorb the cost of that transformation in silence? 4 months, audiences were captivated as Caitlin Clark electrified arenas, rewrote long-standing attendance marks, and delivered television numbers that executives had only dreamed about. Her arrival injected unprecedented visibility and commercial momentum into the WNBA, turning routine regular season matchups into must-watch events. Yet alongside the spectacle came intense scrutiny and punishing physical defense, with many observers framing it as a customary initiation into the professional ranks. The prevailing media storyline suggested she was seamlessly embracing the spotlight, draining deep threes, smiling through hard fouls, and carrying the weight of expectation without complaint. But public narratives often simplify what is far more complicated behind the scenes. The reality of navigating locker room dynamics, league politics, media pressure, and the physical grind of a rookie season is rarely as polished as highlight reels suggest. When a player becomes both the face of explosive growth and the focal point of relentless attention, the emotional and strategic calculations happening off camera can be far more layered than fans realize. From the instant she walked across the draft stage carrying the promise of reshaping a struggling business model, the spotlight shifted into a target. Caitlin Clark entered the league hailed as a financial catalyst, yet the reception on the court often felt less like celebration and more like initiation by fire. Instead of universal gratitude for the surge in ticket sales, ratings, and national attention, she encountered hardened rivalries, visible tension, and an edge to the competition that at times blurred the line between physical defense and something more pointed. Opponents played her aggressively, bodying up on screens, bumping her off driving lanes, contesting every touch with force, testing whether the rookie sensation could withstand the professional grind. Debates around officiating quickly followed, with fans arguing that certain plays deserved harsher penalties while commentators frequently framed the contact as standard veteran gamesmanship. For longtime players accustomed to quieter arenas, the sudden shift to sold-out crowds and primetime broadcasts altered the emotional temperature of every matchup. Increased visibility can magnify pride, pressure, and resentment all at once. Night after night, Clark absorbed hard fouls and relentless coverage, repeatedly getting up off the floor under a national microscope. Cameras often captured flashes of fatigue and frustration, the weight of expectation evident as she searched for rhythm, and at times, for reinforcement. The adjustment to professional basketball is always demanding, but doing so while carrying the commercial hopes of an entire league adds a layer of intensity few rookies in any sport have ever faced. The league eagerly featured Caitlin Clark across marketing campaigns, national broadcasts, and digital promotions, fully embracing the surge of attention she generated. Yet critics argue that when conversations turned to player protection and consistent officiating, the public response felt muted, fueling frustration among fans who believed the league's most visible draw deserved clearer safeguards. That perception of imbalance, celebration without visible defense, added tension to an already charged environment at the franchise level. Scrutiny intensified around the Indiana Fever. When a team selects a transformational talent who instantly becomes the focal point of national conversation, expectations for strategic roster building and system design skyrocket. Many analysts believed the logical next step was to surround her with experienced defenders, stabilizing veterans, and a scheme optimized for pace and perimeter shooting, elements that amplified her collegiate dominance. Instead, observers questioned whether the roster construction and early tactical approach fully complemented her strengths. Adjusting from college to the pros is complex for any rookie, and balancing development with winning priorities can strain coaching decisions. Post-game press conferences occasionally highlighted that tension, with discussions about shot selection, tempo, and adaptation becoming recurring themes. To some fans, those critiques sounded overly public. To others, they reflected the normal growing pains of integrating a high-usage scorer into a new system. Regardless of interpretation, the combination of sky-high expectations, physical play, and organizational recalibration created an atmosphere far more volatile than the polished promotional image suggested. The rationale presented publicly by the selection committee, limited senior national team resume, questions about roster fit, abstract chemistry factors, did little to quiet the backlash. Supporters of Caitlin Clark viewed those explanations as procedural language masking a deeper cultural tension about hierarchy, timing, and control within elite basketball circles. Critics of the decision argued that leaving off the most visible and commercially impactful player in the sport created disastrous optics, while defenders countered that international competition demands continuity and experience over popularity. As debate intensified, coaches and committee representatives made repeated media appearances attempting to frame the choice strictly around basketball criteria, but the conversation had already expanded beyond strategy into symbolism. For Clark, the omission functioned as a defining professional moment. Publicly, she remained measured and composed, declining to escalate the controversy with emotional soundbites. Privately, however, such a high-profile exclusion likely sharpened her understanding of how complex institutional dynamics can be. Breaking viewership records, elevating ticket demand, and contributing to broader revenue growth do not automatically translate into influence within legacy power structures. That realization can shift an athlete's mindset, from focusing solely on performance to thinking more strategically about leverage, branding, and long-term positioning. Financial context amplified the tension. The league's rising valuations, expanded media rights conversations, and improved travel standards underscored how rapidly the business side of women's basketball was evolving. Yet evolution in revenue does not instantly recalibrate entrenched systems of authority. The friction between commercial momentum and institutional tradition created a combustible environment, one where perception, pride, merit, and market value collided in full public view. Under the league's collective bargaining structure, Caitlin Clark entered on a fixed rookie-scale contract, standardized, capped, and modest by broader professional sports standards. The number quickly became a talking point across late-night shows and debate programs, especially when contrasted with the explosive commercial impact she was generating. At the same time, her endorsement portfolio with powerhouse brands like Nike and Gatorade reportedly reached into the tens of millions, positioning her as financially secure independent of her base league salary. That distinction fundamentally altered the usual power dynamic. Most rookies rely almost entirely on their team contracts for stability, which naturally gives leagues structural leverage. Clark's situation was different. Her earning power, brand visibility, and national appeal extended far beyond game checks. While the WNBA provided the competitive platform and global stage, her cultural footprint was not solely dependent on it. Each nationally televised matchup, viral highlight, and sold-out arena reinforced a reality that her market value transcended traditional salary constraints. That imbalance fueled debate. Supporters argued that she was driving disproportionate attention and deserved institutional protection and respect commensurate with her influence. Skeptics countered that collective agreements exist precisely to standardize compensation and maintain parity. Regardless of perspective, the unusual gap between her league salary and external endorsements underscored how uniquely positioned she was. In a league benefiting from unprecedented ratings growth and sponsorship expansion, the relationship was symbiotic, but the leverage equation no longer resembled the typical rookie narrative. That widening gap between her league salary and her off-court earnings inevitably created quiet tension, an issue few executives wanted to address directly. When one player's commercial value dramatically outpaces the compensation structure defined by a collective agreement, it raises uncomfortable questions about flexibility, precedent, and long-term sustainability. At the same time, the broader women's basketball economy has been evolving. New ventures such as Unrivaled have emerged with significant private backing, promising shorter seasons, innovative formats, and in some cases equity participation. Overseas markets have also historically offered elite American players substantial contracts, housing, and additional sponsorship exposure during the off-season. For a uniquely marketable star like Caitlin Clark, The existence of alternative pathways shifts the conversation from theoretical leverage to tangible options. When emerging leagues advertise guaranteed deals, ownership stakes, or lighter travel demands, they introduce competitive pressure into what was once a closed ecosystem. Even if no immediate departure is planned, the credible possibility of movement can influence negotiations and strategic thinking on all sides. Established institutions must then weigh tradition and collective structure against a rapidly diversifying marketplace that increasingly empowers top-tier talent. Whether whispers of record-setting offers materialize or remain speculative, the broader trend is clear. Women's basketball is no longer confined to a single domestic platform. With capital flowing into new formats and international opportunities expanding, elite players possess more agency than ever before. That evolving landscape complicates legacy power dynamics and ensures that any future decision, stay, negotiate, or explore alternatives, carries implications far beyond one individual career. Speculation intensified that rival ventures were structuring unprecedented proposals designed specifically to lure the sport's most bankable attraction into a setting that promised greater control, lighter scheduling demands, and compensation aligned with her commercial impact. Emerging leagues with deep-pocketed investors were rumored to be crafting guaranteed packages and equity opportunities built around star power. At the same time, elite European clubs, often supported by ambitious ownership groups with global branding ambitions, have historically demonstrated a willingness to offer premium salaries, luxury accommodations, and enhanced security to marquee American talent. In that broader marketplace, the contrast between a standardized rookie-scale contract and open market earning potential becomes impossible to ignore. The core question, then, isn't simply financial, it's strategic. Why would a globally recognized athlete with multi-million-dollar endorsement security continue operating within a framework that limits salary flexibility while exposing her to intense scrutiny and physical play? When alternative platforms are viable, leverage naturally shifts. That doesn't guarantee departure, but it does redefine negotiation dynamics. Conversations reportedly escalated behind closed doors, with indications that concerns about roster construction, protection, and long-term direction were communicated directly to decision-makers within the Indiana Fever organization. Whether framed as an ultimatum or a firm boundary, the underlying message was clear: the status quo was not sustainable. At this level of visibility and value, the discussion extends beyond money into respect, structural support, and career longevity, factors that can compel even the most patient superstar to reassess her professional trajectory. Rumors suggested that if meaningful changes weren't made, whether to the coaching structure, roster balance, or the broader competitive culture, she was prepared to reevaluate her long-term commitment. Importantly, that kind of leverage wouldn't necessarily require a formal trade demand. In modern professional sports, a superstar's mere willingness to step back, citing legitimate concerns about workload, health, or overall environment, can create immediate urgency at the highest levels of a franchise. When a player drives ticket sales, television ratings, sponsorship interest, and national visibility, the possibility of her absence alone can trigger sweeping internal discussions. This wouldn't resemble a routine contract negotiation between employer and employee. It would be a franchise cornerstone signaling that the infrastructure around her must match the scale of her impact. The subtext of such a message is rarely subtle. Build a system that maximizes strengths, surround elite talent with complementary toughness and experience, and ensure league-wide standards of protection and officiating are consistently enforced. Otherwise, the organization risks losing not just a player, but the momentum that reshaped its public relevance. At that level, the conversation moves beyond salary into institutional accountability. Superstars with global platforms don't just influence box scores, they influence policy, perception, and investment. Whether framed as a hard ultimatum or a strategic boundary, the implication is the same: evolve quickly to meet the moment, or risk watching transformative growth dissipate just as rapidly as it arrived. The implied message behind the speculation was unmistakable. If the environment didn't evolve, she possessed the platform, popularity, and financial independence to explore opportunities elsewhere. Whether that meant entertaining international offers, engaging with emerging leagues, or simply leveraging her influence to demand structural change, the balance of power no longer resembled a traditional rookie dynamic. For the Indiana Fever, the calculus would be stark. Adapt quickly to maximize the presence of a transformative star or risk watching unprecedented momentum dissipate. When a single athlete drives ticket demand, broadcast ratings, sponsorship growth, and national conversation, organizational pride becomes secondary to long-term viability. Zooming out, the broader saga underscores a league adjusting in real time to the arrival of a generational figure it had long hoped for but may not have been fully prepared to manage. Caitlin Clark's impact has illuminated questions about roster construction, coaching philosophy, officiating consistency, marketing strategy, and revenue structure, all under an unforgiving spotlight. Her situation reflects the modern era of player empowerment, where elite athletes with global brands understand their leverage extends far beyond a standardized contract. Influence now flows through viewership metrics, endorsement ecosystems, and alternative pathways that didn't exist at this scale a decade ago. Whether she ultimately remains in Indiana and pushes for systemic upgrades or one day chooses a different platform entirely, the larger shift has already occurred. The relationship between star power and institutional authority has been recalibrated. Leagues can promote transformative talent, but sustaining that growth requires reciprocal investment, competitive support, strategic vision, and visible respect. As the noise settles, executives across the sport are left confronting a defining question. Can established structures evolve fast enough to align with the magnitude of the superstar they now depend on?